morning, good afternoon, good night, y'all. My name is Corinne, and I am here representing and sharing Soulshift channeling, which is this beautiful business meant to help shift your soul so you can channel more clearly, fully, completely, so you can do your work in the world more effectively with greater ease, and we can all just live more abundant lifestyles. So welcome. I am feeling great today, and I'm here to talk about some things. We're going to be talking about blockages today, and we'll get into a collective message and then 3 different individual messages that you can kind of tune into for different situations in your life. You can listen to all 3. You can just choose one. You can do whatever you want to because you're a strong, independent person who makes your own choices in the world. So welcome to this corner of the internet. And yeah, so let's just jump right into it. The theme of the day or this period in time is blockages. The things that I saw today were arterial blockages, were traffic blockages, were this feeling and energy of blocking, someone stepping in the way and blocking you, or just things being behind barriers. And not all of them feel intentional, not many of them feel malicious. It just feels like information. And I feel like these blockages are coming up to be recognized and to be mediated, moderated, or reallocated. Blockages don't just need to be obliterated. We can use the content and material to put it to a different place. It's like, repurposing. I almost see like digging out a sand pit, or like where sand is blocking an area, where like sand, you know how sand will always kind of find a low point and it can accumulate in places where you don't want it to be. It can fill in rivers and streams, and I mean, there are better natural explanations for this, but basically I'm seeing sand, sediment, a blockage being in a place that you don't want it to be, and then you can take it out, and you don't need to just find somewhere to dump it. You can, if it's sand, put the sand in sandbags and use those sandbags to protect homes, doors, businesses during times of flooding. And that seems to be the big theme here, is taking out restriction and blockage where they do not belong. And I also have a feeling that when you take out these restrictions, fence posts, barriers, you're going to be dealing with less problems of flood and overflow. A lot of the reasons why we experience flooding, overflow, catastrophic damage is because of the restrictions and the limitations that we have put on our waterways on the planet, that we have put on the earth. A lot of times when we are inundated with a flood of emotion or a flood of anger or rage that someone has, it's because there has been a dam put up. There has been restriction put in place, and it just gets to a boiling point, and then all at once it comes out and does a lot more damage than if it was trickling, or it could ebb and flow with the causation or the whatever brings it up to the surface over long periods of time. If waterways are given the chance to swell and recede naturally without the impediment of a dam, they build a certain kind of, the environment, the ecosystem builds a kind of resilience that then can handle more intense flooding. All right. So let's just go ahead and jump into the 3 different reads we're going to do today. We're going to keep on the theme of flowers from last week. If you don't know, what should I say, daylight? Because sometimes I think they call a second job like moonlighting. but I do it in the daytime. I daylight as a florist, a floral designer. I work at a flower shop in a design and also a support role. And it's such a gift. I love it very much. And I love the work I do here even more. So, fun facts. So that's why flowers will come into these a lot because it's something that I'm around a lot. So group 1 is going to be a sunflower, a yellow daisy. It's group A, yellow. And the energy I'm feeling here for you is very small, very petite, very measured. It feels like either all of your attention and focus is on one single tiny speck dot right now. And it's almost like you zoom out. If you've ever seen, it's not Monet, but it's also, I think it's in the impressionistic time period of art, where there is an artist that popularized pointillism. If anyone knows it, drop it below. Also look below if you want video links and info links to stuff that comes up in these readings that maybe needs or wants more explanation. These images and videos themselves also have additional information in them. So if you kind of want the more complete version of, like, if you read energy everywhere in all the places, it can be a secondary piece of literature or study for what we're doing. But anyway, back to group 1. It's almost like you're focusing on one tiny little speck, one tiny little point, one tiny little dot, and it's part of just like a whole big picture. There is a reason why you are focusing on such a small point, and we're going to get into it in your read below. Group 2, I see like it's a tulip. I hear red or yellow, but it looks pink to me, and I think there's a pink tulip emoji, so we're gonna stick with that. I feel very much like you're like kind of that tulip shape, that bell shape or chalice shape. I feel like you're holding a lot right now. I don't feel like you're sharing, and that's okay. That's important. We'll get into that. It could feel like you are in it alone, like you are all by yourself. I don't feel like you really see your comrades in arms, even if you know that they are there and you know that they are near you. It doesn't feel like you've had a lot of connection, and definitely not a lot of pouring into each other or interchange or interexchange of fluids. Take it as you will. Recently. And then group 3, we're gonna work with blue delphinium again. Last week it was a purple group that had a delphinium, but this week it's blue, and most delphinium is blue. Delphinium is that one that's like a straight stalk and has lots of flowers kind of going in an isosceles triangle shape. And I feel some like Jack and the Beanstalk energy for you right now. It's almost like you're running up and down a ladder. You're trying to get perspective. I do feel like you're kind of relaying between two worlds, like you're going up to scout and you're coming down to tell people what's going on up there. It feels very much like you're not perhaps working the most effectively as you are able to. And that is on purpose. We're going to get into that in your reading. But yeah, I also feel like you're getting tired, and I also feel like there is this risk of a misstep or misfooting or damage that comes from when you're just like moving a little bit too fast and like you slip or you trip. It's just going to happen. The important part to know is that we need to make sure that you're wearing the safety gear and the safety features to keep yourself safe through that whole process, right? If you're running up and down a telephone tower and you're doing it not just once to go get something, but you're doing it as your job, you're habitually retrieving information, we want you hooked up to a harness, right? We want to keep you in some sort of like safety mechanism. Okay, also we've got group 1, that is yellow, A. Group 2, B, that is pink, red, yellow, but pink, red, orange, sherbet colors. And group 3, that is blue, C. Group 1, group 2, group 3. Thank you guys for coming today as always. And tune in at the end for a landing of the collective message. Thanks, guys. All right. Group 1. Okay, I'm seeing there's this bakery when I was young and growing up in Northern Illinois that had smiley face cookies, and I've seen them other places. Like there are lots of bakeries and places that have smiley face cookies, but I'm going to tell you about this one. It was probably like a sugar cookie or like a sugar cookie. It was about this big. And it was dipped in like probably like a royal icing, something that like dried kind of hard. If you've seen a black and white cookie, like the classic black and whites, it was about that size and shape and that kind of icing. And then they would pipe on chocolate frosting to make the smiley face, and that was cake frosting, like buttercream. And so it would kind of get a crust on it. But it was a lot squishier. It was, I'm hearing, more living, more alive than the royal icing. And that's because it had more water in it. And what I'm feeling from you here is that you might be a little bit crusty, right? You might feel a little bit dried out at the edges. I don't feel like you are your normal soft and squishy self at the moment. I don't feel like you are as accessible to those around you. It does not feel like a bad thing. It doesn't feel like you have been burnt. Even if you have been burned, it doesn't feel like this is happening because you've been burned. I think there are wrongs done against us often, right? It just happens. It's not all on purpose. Sometimes it is. In the instance that it is, I still don't think that you have chosen to harden your heart against the world or anyone else because of that. And I think it's important to take a moment and talk about that, because I hear that's what we're here to do. I'm asking to harden our hearts? No, to keep them soft. We're here to keep our hearts soft. Yes, we need to have boundaries. And yes, we need to know when to release the hyper focus. And I think that is perhaps where you have gotten trapped before. I don't think that's your story this time, is getting trapped in hyper focus, where you're like that pointillism picture from the very beginning. Check down and I'll link to a picture or to info in the description if you need additional information, whether it's for your brain or for your spirit. Yeah. I don't think you are going to get trapped in hyperfocus and obsession, because I don't think you are obsessed with one color like you have been before. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like if you're in red, if you're seeing red, if you're angry, and blue comes along, and you don't want to feel coolness, you don't want to feel peaceful, you don't want to feel tranquil, you don't want to feel watery, like you want to stay in the rage, you kind of want to burn it up. And before you even get close to the blue, it kind of just like water would evaporate into steam. I think this comes from not feeling like you have power or control in your youth, and that the only time you got to experience an emotion was when you were in it. And this concept of, if I leave this emotion, if I leave this experience, if I leave this feeling, I'm never going to see it again. and I'm not going to have access to this information. It'll just be left in the dust. And I think that feels like the fear point that's so large of, well, hey, I'm really angry at this person right now, and I'm afraid that if I feel kindness or sweetness or softness from towards them, that I'm going to forget that they made me feel so angry. And I don't think that you're going to. I think that could have happened in the past, and you might have felt naive or gullible or just lost and forgotten. Like you yourself lost and forgot that past version of yourself. And I think you've evolved to a much more complex paint palette where you have a lot of different emotions on your plate at the same time. You have learned to dabble in each of them and to intermix them to paint a very complex and rich experience of your life. I also am seeing the importance of sharing these feelings and emotions with others. If we're talking back to the beginning of the collective reading, the topic of the day of blockages, it feels like you are in a habit and pattern of more freely sharing your, why do I hear interstitial? Your interstitial understanding. I'm going to Google that after the fact, and I'll probably put it in the link below. But what I'm getting is like interstitial is the space in between. And it's the space in between where the feeling originates inside of you, which I'm hearing has got a lot to do with trauma or like original templating. It doesn't have to be trauma like bad, but it can be original templating of when something like this happened in the past, it made me feel this certain way. And so something like this is happening now and I'm feeling a certain way. And the space in between where that origination point inside of you is coming from and the stimulus or the thing on the outside of you that's making you feel that way, that you're kind of sharing and widening the gradient and allowing that interstitial space, the space in between, to become more apparent and more known, as opposed to before. I feel like you would really keep it tight to the chest, keep it well vested, or like to breast your cards, you would keep it why do I want to say close to the cuff? You were very not off the cuff. Off the cuff is just like, saying something off the cuff, casual, it just happened, I feel like you are more off the cuff now, and you're probably between these two places of keeping things very close to your heart and letting them just go off the cuff, flying off the handle. You're kind of playing in the space in between. And that is where, that's where some really beautiful things can happen. Okay. Let's see. I think it might be short and sweet this week, y'all. That's all that comes up. Come back at the end for the rest of the collective message. And yeah, we'll get into a lot more there about what's happening, what's to come. Okay. Group two, Sherbert babies. And the chalice cup, the isolation that you're feeling right now is one that is testing your will. And I hear that you might be thinking it's testing your commitment to the cause. And I think it's less about that and it's more about showing you how much capacity you really hold, because I think that you are capable of so much more than you gave yourself credit for, than you give yourself credit for, than you expect of yourself. Those are the right words. You are capable of so much more than you expect of yourself. And it's not like you are playing it safe or playing it easy, but it's just you hold yourself, you need to hold yourself in higher esteem. because I see when you hold yourself in higher esteem, it's almost like this tulip, kind of the stem lengthens and the petal cup gets raised up and then is allowed to open, and it kind of like spills the water out the petals. Like when tulips, they come up out of the ground like this, and then they kind of open up like this, and then they really blow open if you cut them, or once they've really they open up all the way, almost beyond where my hands can go. And so I see the water that you're holding just kind of, these petals go so far back that then the water just kind of pours out and pours into those around you. You might have been feeling like you are not contributing enough. And I can assure you that that's not the case, not only because you're not in a season of contribution to others, you're in a season of holding, and what others are actually looking for and wanting from you is the capacity to hold, is holding. And I hear strength training. Like if you're not already at the gym trying to build strength, recognize the ways that, number one, if you're a gym babe, lean into strength training. I feel like that's kind of what you need right now. Not a fitness instructor. Do what's best for your body always, and use your discretion. But strength training is a recommendation. But also, if you're not a Jimbo, then recognize the way that you're feeling and the experiences that you're having right now as one that trains strength in your life. And one will notice that strength training is not about cardio. It's not about sprinting. It's not really, I don't think it's really about raising your heart rate, although I'm sure that there are some fitness babes out there who will say like, yeah, you should raise your heart rate and then you should do strength training. I think that's the way that it's done. But the concept is the strength building part is not, the point of it is not a raised heart rate. That's for something else. And so I feel like in your life right now, you might be feeling like you're not doing enough, or very much because you're not out of breath. You know, you may be sweating, but it's more like out of holding stress versus like a profuse sweating of spending a ton of energy sprinting. Or there are two muscle tissue types, like light and dark, or red and I don't know, something where it's like one is used for short bursts of energy and the other is used for long-term sustained energetic engagement. And that's where you are playing with right now. Okay guys, it might be short and sweet this week. That's the information that you need to know. Check in at the end for the rest of the collective message, because I have a feeling that that's going to be a little bit meatier. But I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for coming. And as always, it's a treat. Group three. All right, Delphinium babes. The thing I see here is like a scout at the top, almost like a lookout. I'm flashing back to parts of Disney movies like Robin Hood, where the little vultures are keeping guard and watching out, and in Mulan on the Great Wall, where people are keeping watch at the different stations of the Great Wall and how information is passed from turret to turret very quickly, and how that is done. Like in Robin Hood with the buzzards, like they have arrows and they don't use them that much. They accidentally misfire them. But it's the same theme of between that and like in Mulan, when there's a threat that comes to the border, someone lights their lantern and then it just spreads like wildfire so quickly. It jumps distance. And this is the concept of information spread very fast, and to maintain your integrity in it. And it's less about maintaining your integrity and it's more about maintaining your body's ecosystem and maintaining your homeostasis and maintaining your presence and rhythm and maintaining your post at the guard, or your guard at the post. Staying up in the bird's nest as opposed to coming down to the ground to relay and to receive, because I have a feeling that whatever you're in right now in life is a sprint, which is different from the second pile that we were just talking about. But you are in a, maybe it's not a sprint moment, and maybe perhaps it is kind of similar, but you're in a moment where you're meant to have heightened awareness. And when it is like a stretch kind of a time where you are going to be working longer hours, it is beyond your normal schedule. It is meant to be this way on purpose. And it's because I'm hearing there's like imminent threat. I don't think this is actually the case. I think it's a perceived imminent threat. But the thing is when the body has only so much information and you don't know exactly what is going on, it is best to operate under the amount of information that you do have and to take it at face value. So I think there's a situation coming up where you don't have all of the information. You have a little bit at a time, but it's not the time to be giving the benefit of the doubt. It's the time to be reacting truthfully and fully and completely given your capacity. When we jump back to the beginning part of blockages, this is the point where you stand out of the way. You get out of the way. Do not block the flow. Don't try and mediate it yourself. Let things happen as they may and just do your job. Stand at the post. I also want to say that you are going to be experiencing others coming to you to give support in ways that you need it, and I want to say you need to be able to take it. You don't need to do anything. You're going to be fine either way, and it would be in your favor to receive that support graciously and willingly. Emphasis on the willingly. I feel like you are not always easefully and willingly receiving information or receiving support from others. And that's not what it's about. It's about allowing others to contribute to you because they gain so much value from your experience and the role that you have, the job that you're doing. It feels weird to be taking payment from those who benefit from the job that is done, because I feel like you are thinking your service is only to the employer, only to one person, right? When other people are inadvertently benefiting from your presence and are trying to give you payment, you're like, oh, no. I only get payment from the boss. I'm only here for this job. But it negates the fact that you are playing multiple fiddles at once. Not in a bad way, but it's almost like you've got a full quartet vibe going on and you're just asking to be paid as one instrumentalist, when really you likely need the kind of support that could support a full band, because you're putting out the energy and expending the stress that a full band would take, but you're just one person. So by all means, take the help that's given. Okay, y'all, let's go ahead and get back to the collective message. That's it for you, group 3. We are short and sweet today. But coming back to the collective, the point of where the blockages are going is the next most important part in this group, this collective group, because the blockages are broken down in a number of ways. Sometimes, if we're going back to a flow of water and the idea of a dam, sometimes it's just like, a magician, how they'll put those like dividers in, like if they've got someone laying down in a box with their head and their feet sticking out and they're going to saw in the middle of it, right? They put this like divider in it first. I don't know why they do that, or at the end or somewhere, just to show that they've cut this person in half, right? And it's almost like if you have a dam of water that's like that divider, and you can just take out the divider all at once, it'll go flowing forth. Sometimes that's how you remove the blockage. It's all at once, all or nothing. And then I'm seeing someone just like tosses aside like it's like flimsy cardboard. It's funny how something with so much surface area can be so flimsy, so like not substantial if it's held right at all the edges. If your attachment, or if your environment's attachment to the blockage is high, then there's a lot of damage or a lot of inhibiting that this block can do. It can really impede the flow of traffic. For other blockage removal, it's almost like dynamiting a dam, where it creates an explosion. It's very disruptive. It might even gouge out larger than, it might have an impact zone, like a nuclear site, right? Or like a area beyond what you want to destroy that also gets destroyed as well as collateral, right? And stuff gets washed down. All that debris, kind of all that rubble kind of gets pushed out with the flow of water. This is another way to remove a block. And if this is the way that you choose, know that the first bit of flow that happens after this time is one that is contaminated in and of itself. It's like if you turn your water off to do work on the sink, and then you turn the water on, it has to flow through the pipes, and especially if it's been sitting for a while, there might be kind of a buildup. You might have rust come out at first. You might have stagnant water that just got a little icky, and so you just want to let the water run for a little bit before you take the temperature. So if you are destroying blockages this way, it's important to not judge the success of the project based on the first few drops of water that come through. You want to like stick with it for a couple of weeks, or whatever the appropriate time frame is for you for what you're dealing with, and take the temperature a few moments into it, right? A few months into it. You don't need to move right away. A magic third way to remove blockages, I'm hearing, is with hypnosis. If we're talking about mental blocks, there are certain kinds of blocks that, and this is core patterning, belief systems, traumas, attachments, because really trauma is about attachment to a certain firing off process, to a certain reaction, to a certain outcome, right? That gets triggered every time a certain input hits the body. And if you do this kind of uncoupling, this uncoupling between impetus and response, or input and response, then it's like invisible. There's no collateral damage. There's no removal. It just does not exist. The two are not linked anymore. They exist independently, and therefore it like cuts the chain reaction while preserving and conserving a lot of energy. Yes, Miss Phoebe. This is the best way to do it if you can. To just uncouple, to just unlink, to maintain your own integrity, to allow them to maintain their integrity, and to just modify your connection so it's less painful, and so that way when they make decisions and choices, it doesn't jerk you around in the same way, and vice versa. if this is a way that you choose to do things, if this is the way that you choose to remove blocks, you need to allow space for new patterning to come into play. And if you want to check in and talk about patternings 2 weeks ago, and I'll link it below, so go ahead and find it under, in the description. We talk a lot about repatterning, releasing old patterning, and the most important part of releasing old patterning being the allocation or allowing space for new information, new patterning to come in, and what that looks like, how it's done, I feel like we are dealing with a very sequential, in sequence roll and string of events right now. A very call and response, a very, well, this happens, then that means that happens, which means this happens. And it feels less important to disrupt this chain of events than it feels more important to let it all play through. Big witnessing energy this week, less actioning energy, but more important to really see with open eyes what's going on, what be happening. Because this is important for you to see what is happening, not to make action or decision on now, but to put in the memory bank so that way you can make informed decision later on. All right, y'all, thank you so much for joining me this week. I know it's kind of shorter than usual and sweet. I am so grateful to have your presence here. If you wonder what I do, feel free to stick around. I practice channeling. The way that I got into it has taken a number of different steps, but I would say one of the biggest catalysts was when I was in a certification training course for hypnosis, hypnotherapy, and past life regression. And during a class demonstration presentation, I kind of popped into a spontaneous state where information that I did not previously know was coming through my body and delivering messages to the classmates that were there and involved. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. What is that? What was that? How do I do it again? Because it feels informative and good. And it really fed a need and a passion that I had been searching for a long time in my life. I would argue for many, many years. And from there, I found someone who helped me learn and understand channeled connection within the framework of the Akashic Records, which, if you're not familiar with it, look it up. It's so very cool, and I would love for you to do your own research, but was popularized by this man named Edgar Casey, who would go into a semi trance state, hypnotic state, and that's how he would connect, and he'd get information that way and then bring it back. Very group 3, if you listen to group 3, like going up to the tower, doing the things, coming back down to the tower, reporting back to the class. But basically it's this concept of a divine place of knowing that we all have access to, but like any skill and talent and God-given right, the more you practice it, the more easeful it comes. And so I spent a lot of time practicing and learning and stuff like that, and working with other people to help get information that was important to them from a soul space that is, in my mind, divinely protected and shrouded in mystery to a certain point. But anyway, so I have worked with the Akashic Records. What we're doing here in this group space is a little bit more freestyle, but still of the same potency and energy that I carry in my personal sessions that I have with people. So I can tap into your particular Akashic record or your particular radio station of insight, clarity, connection with your higher self, your soul self, all in the hope to strengthen the connection that you already have with that part of yourself, and to kind of like widen the space and make more way for you to ideally hold that connection in and of yourself. So you don't need, or so you don't have the desire or want to have anyone outside of you give you information from that space. In the meantime, I am happy and willing to give or to bridge that information for you. It is not my goal to gatekeep. I'm not about that. I love to empower people to kind of use their own will and drive to fish. Like, I'd much rather teach you to fish than give you a fish. And also I can give you some fish while you're learning how to fish. You know what I mean? So that's the goal. And I love it. I love to give people fish. It's so fun. I love to do sessions with people. And another part of that is the co-creation and collaboration, co-labor process that we have with our planet. And that includes everything. That includes our pets, our partners, our families, our lineage that comes before us and goes beyond, that comes to our businesses that we shepherd and are in partnership with on this earth. And I'm all about how we can work together more effectively. And in my mind, if we have more information about each of our goals, our strengths, our challenges, we can just do our jobs more better. And we can probably have a lot more fun along the way, because we are getting caught up on the sticking points less, and we are jiving and finding our rhythm and roots and beat more fully. And who doesn't love to dance while they work, you know? So that's what my relationship with Soulshift channeling, the business that I own, run, shepherd, is all about. You can book with me on my website that's linked below. And if you are, I'm currently in Panama City, Florida. And if you are nearby, I occasionally run group sessions. So that's kind of a fun thing to do too. And who knows, one day, maybe we'll be doing some things online, because that would be a blast as well. So that's a little bit about what I do and what I am here for in this particular moonlight capacity. Again, it's been such a joy to share presence, and I'll see you next week. Bye.